Okay, hi everyone. Sorry for the delay. We are about 3 minutes late, but I hope all of you are doing okay. And at least you have sort of accepted kind of what has happened. So the session title is What Just Happened. And the reason why I decided to put this image is because people will have different moods. Of course, there are students who would have done well. There are students who may not have performed to their expectations. Some students may have done terribly. The point is from here on, right? You have to focus on what lies ahead rather than the things that are from the past. So what you need to do is, I'll be talking about that and we'll spend maybe 20 minutes or so, not a lot of time, but I'll be taking questions from the chat, from the YouTube chat. So if you want to ask me anything, feel free to ask. Let me know if I can help you with something that might help you for the things that are ahead of you, right? So we still have a lot of things to that will happen, and you have to focus on that rather than worrying about what has already happened, right? So, starting from the first thing, right, which is like the overall estimates that we have from this year, it appears that slot 2 was slightly more difficult compared to slot 3. And if you look at slot 3, that was maybe slightly more difficult than slot 1, right? So it appears, right, that slot 1 has been like the slightly the on the easier side compared to slot 2 and slot 3. So what will happen is cutoffs are going to be lower compared to CAT 24, especially because both font and DLR, if you look at slot 2 and slot 3, were slightly more difficult than CAT 24. Not as difficult as CAT 23 though, right? So the cutoffs should be slightly more than CAT 23, but less than CAT 24, right? That is how the cutoffs will be placed. And if you look at like the overall thing, this is where things should be. Okay. Now, what you need to do from here, and that's the reason why we decided to have this session, is because a lot of students, and we've seen this every single year, and again, I was also a student at a point of time. The immediate reaction that you have, right, is you tend to think that this is the end of it, right? But you have to understand that this is just the beginning. So for a lot of you, this might be the first really competitive test that you have appeared for. Okay. For some students, maybe it was their second attempt or third attempt, right? And for them, the dynamics are very different compared to somebody who is taking it for the very first time. So you have to understand that whatever happened today will not have a lot of impact on the remaining tests as such, and if you decide to put in more effort. And there are a lot of stories every single year where people don't do well on the CAT, but they do well on the other test, right? So in case there are some of you who may have listened to this video, rather than video, I would say an audio that we had created before the CAT, that listen to this before you get into the test venue. In that also, I had mentioned this, that there are going to be other tests and there will be other B schools that you can look at. So CAT is not the end of it, right? So especially if you're somebody who has not done well, you've underperformed for whatever reasons, you have to learn from that and apply those learnings for the subsequent exams and tests that you're going to appear for. Okay. So the immediate reaction will be bad, especially if you haven't done well. But understand that uh, no matter what happens, this is not the end of it. Okay, so the journey has just started. There are still a lot of things to go. For some of you who have already taken the NMAT, maybe you had some exposure of a competitive test, but for people taking it for the very first time, the impact is found to be much more severe, right? And there is this thing, right? If anybody has seen this thing called 5 stages of grief, there is that Dabda framework, as it is called. So the end of the Dabda framework is basically acceptance, right? So you have to kind of accept what has happened. The initial reactions will obviously be of that there is going to be denial, that there's going to be anger, there's going to be bargaining and depression, and then finally acceptance. So accept whatever has happened and then move on, right? So from here, what you should do, right, is first thing is going to be take a quick break. Okay, now what I mean by taking a quick break is, for example, tomorrow, right, on Monday, you don't really have to sit and do a lot of questions, right? It's not necessary. If you want, you can definitely take a break from preparation just to sort of relax a little bit, right? Because you've been preparing for the last several months, and definitely last couple of days have been intense in that sense. So you need to take a quick break. Both your mind and body need some sort of relaxation, and then you start preparing for the test, right? So for a lot of you, maybe you're taking nmat in, let's say, the next 3 to 4 days, or maybe you're taking mycat or snap, which is happening on coming Saturday. So you have to start thinking about these tests that are ahead of you and start taking mocks, okay? Because that is going to be the most important thing. See, when you have already taken the cat, you now have covered most of the content that is required for other admats, right? So whether you talk about SNAP or NMAT or CET, CMAT, ZAT, MyCat, whatever you want to say, you have covered majority of that syllabus. Now you have to focus on these additional topics that you're going to get, whether it is blood relations, coding, decoding, right? Whether it is, let's say, things like critical reasoning, vocab, grammar, right? So these are the things that you should start working on, which are going to be incremental. So that is the additional effort that you have to put in, apart from the effort that you already put in. So the prep that you have done, no matter what happened today, the prep that you have done will not go waste. It will help you in other tests. And there are, as I mentioned, right, countless examples of people who, for whatever reasons, didn't do well on the cat and have done exceedingly well on the other tests that are out there. So start preparing for these other tests that are ahead of you. Now, there will be that tendency to search for answers, right? That, okay, maybe for this particular question, I got, let's say, some particular thing as the answer. Let me go online and try and find, okay, what was the answer and so on. That exercise is not going to help you. Okay, so it might further demotivate you if you realize that, okay, suddenly I've got a lot of questions wrong. So you need to wait for the official response sheet. Okay. And for example, in VRC, a lot of people think that, okay, mark this with full confidence. I don't know. I think it is right, but then it might be wrong. Or the other thing can happen, that you think something has gone wrong, but it turns out to be right. So that is why the exercise generally becomes pointless if you do excessive bit of it. So it's better to just wait for the official response sheet. What's done is done. So within 7 to 10 days, the official response sheet will be out, and then we'll have a better estimate of what percentile you can possibly get. And what you need to do is you need to use that percentile prediction. And not only IMS, of course, there are a lot of others also who will keep doing predictions. You look at everybody's prediction and then you see, okay, fine. Mostly people are saying that I can get, let's say, an 85 percentile or a 90 percentile or 98 percentile. Then you operate between, say, the plus or minus 2 3 percentile range, because you never know exactly how many people are going to take the test, what is the composition of the test taking population. So we don't know. There are a lot of unknowns there. And that is why, take everything that you see right now, the estimates also that we showed, you have to understand that things are going to change a little bit from here once the response sheet will be out. So you apply to B schools within that plus or minus 2 3 percentile range to be on the safer side. Okay. Why on the plus side also? Because you never know, because the percentile actual that you get can be even higher, because normalization will happen. Some slot will get scaled up, some slot will get scaled down. And because of that, the percentile, of course, that you will get, it's very difficult to predict that. So what you need to do from here on is learn from the mistakes that you did. Maybe you didn't prepare well for CAT, right? And see, you have to be honest to yourself sometimes and say that, okay, I didn't do well, right? And there could be reasons behind it. Maybe you could have done better. And that is generally not a good thing to have, right? That feeling that, okay, I could have done better. Because then it means that you didn't put in the effort that was required. So what is the learning from that experience is, I have remaining tests. Let me put in the best foot forward and put in all the effort that I can. So if I have Snap, let's say in the next whatever 5 days, or I'm going to take it later, let me put in the best effort that I can to crack Snap. And if, let's say, for cat, maybe you haven't done enough, you didn't do well today, you can do better in Snap, or you can do better in NMAT, you can do better in CMAT, CET, MyCat, etc. So that is why the race is not over, right? It has just started, in fact. Now, what you should not do, right? Number one is going to be giving up on the MBA dream for those of you who haven't done well. And some of you maybe walked in with that mindset that I will be able to solve two sets today, but you are able to do only one or 1.5. Or maybe you thought that, okay, I'll be able to do 10 questions on quant and you could do only five. No matter what has happened, right? There is no reason for you to give up on the MBA dream, because CAT is not equal to MBA. You have to first understand that and get it out of your head if you believe it to be true. CAT is not equal to MBA. So just because you're not done well on the CAT doesn't mean that you'll not be able to get into a good institute. So don't give up on your MBA dream. And even if it was your first attempt, right? Don't think that I will have to go for a retake, because a lot of people start thinking that maybe I should go for a retake. But retake also has its own set of challenges. And if there is anybody in the audience who has gone for a retake, they know the amount of effort that you need to put in, the amount of also pressure that it builds. So you don't want to go for a retake unless it is absolutely necessary. What I'm trying to get at is you still have other tests, right? You're going to have MyCAT in December. There's another MyCAT in Jan. You have ZAT in Jan. You're going to have PGDBA. You have CMAT, CT. So you take these tests and see what happens. And at the end of the whole thing, you'll have enough opportunity to say, okay, fine, I want to go for a retake or I don't want to go for a retake. Okay. The second thing that happens is a lot of people get into this whole crying over the unfair, uh, whether you call it competition or normalization and stuff like that. But see, do you have any control over this, right? You don't. So just crying that, okay, I got a difficult slot, or my slot is going to be scaled down or whatever it may be. That's again a pointless exercise, because do you know the performance of the outliers in your particular slot? No. Do you know the mean of your slot? No. Do you know standard deviation of your slot? No. So that's a statistical phenomenon, right? So you don't have to do anything on your side that you'll be able to change the outcome of what is going to happen. So leave the normalization aside. Let the IMs handle it. The competition, right? See, competition is always going to be there. Now, 2.95 lakh people admit cards were released, and if you look at typically the attendance rate, roughly about 2.6 lakh people will end up taking the test, is the estimate. Now, do you control that? Again, no. In fact, this year it's a good thing that the number of takers has dropped, because of which what will happen also is, especially for some of the institutions that issue calls, the figure that would be required in terms of percentile will go down marginally, because they still need to shortlist n number of candidates, right? So if they're, let's say, doing shortlisting from let's say 7 times compared to the number of seats, you would see that their percentile cutoff will drop a little bit, right? So some things will work in your favor this year, especially the competition going down a little bit. But then you don't have a lot of control over it. So anyway, don't worry about it. Uh, for people who had a very good day, okay, now whether it was like uh, a an attempt wherein you knew what you were doing, or sometimes it also happens that you end up getting a bit lucky, you end up seeing questions that are easy and things like that. Just because you had a good day, you should not feel overconfident, which is another tendency that happens. So people sometimes get so relaxed that they stop preparing for other tests. They start taking things very, very lightly when it comes to group discussion and VAT and interview preparation, which again is something you should not be doing. So overconfidence is always bad. A lot of people think that just because they could crack a particular test, they will be able to also do well on the VAT GDPI, which will not happen necessarily. So that is why don't get overconfident as well. And another thing which a lot of people will do is being extremely selective when it comes to applying to B schools. You have to understand that even if you have done well on the test, or you may have done okay on the test, things can always go wrong from here when it comes to GD VAT PI, because institutes are not just sitting there with whatever a red carpet that, okay, hey, come and join us, right? It's going to be definitely very, very competitive. So don't relax, don't take things lightly. And being extremely selective is basically applying to very few institutes, thinking that, okay, I've got so much percentile, I'll definitely be able to get into some institutes. And that is why you have to work with some buffer. So you say, okay, fine, I have got, let's say, X percentile. Let me also apply to some institutes that are X minus 2 percentile cutoff, right? Which are slightly lower, or these are my second preference institutes, just so that you create a little bit of room for yourself, wherein you have at least some converts that are 100% going to happen, and then somewhere you don't know what is going to happen with respect to outcome. Okay. So that is what I wanted to share. And I'm going to be on this slide so that people who keep joining, they will focus on, okay, what you should do and what you should not do. But I'm going to take a couple of questions before we sort of wrap it up. Uh, okay. Overall mark or section wise marks for three subjects which would more influence the percentile. So what they do is, firstly, they look at when you look at the normalization document as well, they will look at the individual slot for individual sections, and they will also then look at the overall thing for that particular subject, and then they will remove outliers in some sense, and then they will normalize across the slots. So then you have a scaled score which gets calculated. Then they will calculate scale score for for particular section, and then for the next section, and then for the next section. Then they add up those scaled scores, and that gives you the overall score. The percentile is calculated on the overall score. Okay. Will IMS be conducting classes for other tests? Okay, so we have a lot of stuff that is done for other tests as well. So when you look at in your MyMS dashboard, again, depending on which variant you are a part of, you will see AdMat masterclasses, which there are 20 AdMat masterclasses. Then there are mocks for each of the tests. You also have some test specific material. For example, for MyCat, there is a descriptive writing material that is given. We have ZAT. For ZAT, there are DM tests. There are 5 masterclasses that you're going to have. Then there are that mock tests, past paper solutions, etc. So there is a lot of things that are available. You start going through MyMS and see what is there, and then depending on which test you're going to take next, you start working on those resources. Okay. DLR slot one was sad. Okay, so see what will happen is across the slots, there will be a set of individuals who will feel that they had a very bad day. There will be people who will say, okay, fine, I did closer to my expectations. And then there will be people who have done extremely well, right? So it's okay. That's the whole point of this session, that you have to understand and accept what has happened, learn from the mistakes that you have made in your preparation, and maybe today if you have done any mistakes, and then apply that for the subsequent exams. Okay. Please make a video on NMAT. Okay, we have already made a video on how to crack NMAT, but I'll try and do another video soon on NMAT as well. I was panicking while solving quants, too much questions asked. So with quant, especially this year, found it to be extremely lengthy. You had to calculate a lot of things. Ended up using calculator a lot, and it happened for most of the students that they had to use calculators for most of the questions. And the attempts also dropped compared to 24. So anybody who walked in with that mindset that, okay, I'll get questions similar to 24, would have been surprised. But people who walked in with the mindset that, okay, anything can happen, they would have been okay. They would have adjusted to the difficulty much more comfortably. How difficult is NMAT or SNAP? Okay, so if you have somebody who has prepared for CAT very well, you're not going to find NMAT or SNAP to be very, very difficult. But the two tests have extremely different formats, and they are very different compared to CAT. If you think of NMAT, it's an adaptive test. You can see only one question at a time, and you have to answer it, then only you move on, and you can't go back to the question. So the decision making is very different. But when it comes to Snap, it's a 60-minute, 60 question thing, almost like a T20 game. You end up going very, very fast and try and do as many questions as you can. The problem with Snap is the fact that there's no normalization. So you have to do best to your ability in whatever attempts you are taking, and hoping that that suffices to get to a decent percentile. Okay. Uh, how are you doing? You also took the CAT and it wasn't something usual. Okay, so see, with respect to CAT, I haven't, I mean, firstly, I don't do anything. So I just go and take tests anyway for most of the tests. That is the case. But with CAT, what happens is CAT is definitely a far more difficult test compared to others. And you need to have like a decent amount of practice to do well, right? So I particularly don't take any mocks, etc. So I don't have great expectations anyway. So I just go and try and have fun. Today, I think was like the worst CAT that I've taken in a long, long time for multiple reasons. I was definitely rusty, but overall also had like a very terrible experience of the whole thing. Um Make a video on how to use IMS for ZAT prep apart from mock test. Sure, we'll try and do that as soon as we can. I don't know how the paper went. How should I prepare for other exam like ZAT and NMAT? Okay, so what you need to first do is, if possible, is just take a mock as early as you can for whatever test that you're planning. So let's say you're going to take NMAT soon, maybe in the next 10 days. You take an NMAT mock as soon as you can, so that you know that, okay, these are the areas that I need to work on, right? Because see, for example, critical reasoning, it is asked a lot on the NMAT. You may be good at it because you have already prepared for CAT. So when you take the test, you will see really how you are faring, and then you can decide that, okay, I don't need to spend time on this, I need to spend more time on that, right? So do that. So take a snap mock, for example, say on Tuesday, so that you know that, okay, these are the areas that I need to work on. There are additional topics that you'll have to do, for example, clocks, calendars. You have to do a little bit of technical grammar for Snap, so parts of speech and so on. So there are these specific things that you'll have to work on. And the mocks is the best way to start. So you take a mock, figure out where the gaps are, and then just work on those aspects. See, because whatever you studied for CAT, let's say you did profit loss discount. Profit loss discount is the same across all the other tests as well, right? It's the core fundamentals are not changing. So you just have to focus on what matters. So let's say you're not taking SNAP, but you're taking NMAT. Should you bother about time, speed, distance, and geometry? No. But let's say you're going to take in Jan, you're going to take ZAT. So time, speed, distance, and geometry is important for that. So you'll have to strategize accordingly depending on which test you're planning to take. I think DLR was easy in slot one if the selection is good. So again, that is true across the slot. So even in slot three, there were some sets which, if you had identified the right sets, you would have done for a 99 percentile. I think even three sets were possible. I finished 3.5 DLR set, right? So you have somebody who has written 3.5 DLR set. So it was possible. And for a lot of people who have been preparing really well, they will have good outcomes, right? So I can't see any mocks on that on the IMS prepare for both. Okay, so please raise a ticket because we'll have to check which variant you are a part of. Right now, I don't have that information, so I won't comment. About that preparation, okay, so again, please start with a past that paper. Now, when you look at that over the last couple of years, it has become far more structured compared to the absolute randomness that it used to have at a point of time, right? So very, very difficult quant, etc. Now they've rationalized that a little bit. So the quant has become more accessible on the ZAT. If you're prepared for cat quant, more or less you're prepared for ZAT quant as well. I don't need to do anything else. But yes, start working on decision making as the section because that is different. And definitely take a mock as soon as possible. Either you take a mock or a pass that paper, which is available in MyMS, and that will be the starting point of your ZAT because that the challenge with ZAT is the marking scheme, right? So for unattempted questions also there's negative. So that you need to take care of. DLR didn't go well as expected, and as I prepared, I think I selected wrong set. See, Sakshi, that will happen to even people who are good at DLR. So see, there are a lot of judgments that you make on the CAT day. Um, and sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't do well, right? But you have to accept that even the greatest of the greatest players, they are going to have bad days, and it's just okay, right? You have to accept that. So today also, I mean, when I was coming home from the paper, I was like thinking of, okay, I should have done this, I should have done that. The timer ran out, and I was like looking at a quant question, and I found the answer, but when I saw on my screen, the timer had ran out. So everybody is going to have bad days, right? So it's okay. Uh, will I get Zarat and Snap mocks? Aryan, again, variant is what we will have to look at. Please check the variant in which you have enrolled and look at the program features. Okay. Um, XLR IBM comes in top three B schools of India, as in, is it better than most IMs? So when you look at IM ABC, they are like a top tier league, so ABC, and then you can put XLRI. So you can put XLRI, FMS, and then somebody can debate that, okay, I've got XLRI versus an IM Lucknow, then what should I do? Because that's still a question that can be discussed because of the difference in batch size and the brand name and so on. But yeah, so definitely in top 10 B schools of India. Yeah. Should I start with Snap mock? Should I start Snap with a mock? Yes, definitely. So see, Snap is not going to be like a bigger beast than Cat to kill, right? So you are going to find it much easier. But then with Snap, I have discussed it enough in some of my past videos as well that I've made on Snap, how to crack Snap, for example, that there is no normalization. So good if you're taking two attempts at least. If not, let's say if you're taking only one attempt, try and get a score of 45-ish so that you have a chance for SIBM, SCM, HRD, etc. Because with a paper that is easy, the problem is that people tend to get concentrated in small differences, right? So, for example, the score of say between say a score of 31 and 32, 1 mark difference, the percentile difference could be even say 2 percentile. So that is where the problem lies. So you have to go very, very fast in Snap. and even for NMAT, but NMAT has a different strategy compared to SNAP. How to prepare for that if I was only focused on arithmetic and algebra and quants and tables and charts in DLR for my CAT? Okay, so arithmetic and algebra, if you have done, Pranay, you have more or less covered the majority, but you'll definitely have to add maybe geometry and permutation combination at least, right? So you can focus on these two areas that you haven't done enough for CAT. Score 212 in NMAT, should I retake the test? It depends on your split. So last year, NMIMS had a 62 in each of the sections and 209 overall as the cutoff. 212 is above that, but if your sectionals are more than 62, I think NMIMS should call you this year as well, if at all they continue with the same methodology of shortlisting people. But if they decide to change, then of course this might not be enough. But anyway, for NMIMS, they don't accept the second attempt. So if you're targeting some of the other institutes through NMAT, you can go for a retake. I have my SNAP and NMAT on consecutive days. How do I prepare for both? So you be ready for both by taking mocks of both, correct? So that's the only way to be ready. Now, because you already scheduled your NMAT, I would not recommend you to change your slot, etc. If that, I don't even know if that option is available right now, but you should not change your slot. So what you need to do is take mocks of both, maybe on alternate days, right? So see, you have 10 mocks of NMAT, you have 10 mocks of SNAP. Assuming you haven't done anything right now, you will still be able to take all of these mocks if you decide to. Because if you look at SNAP, it's a 1 hour test. If I decide, I can actually do like 5, 6 mocks in a day also. Of course, that is not recommended, but I'm just saying that it is possible to do all 10 mocks of SNAP before you go and take the SNAP. So plan out in such a way that you're doing at least 7, 8 mocks, if not all the 10 mocks that are there. What to do from now for MBA CET? Okay, so Ayush, for MBA CET, the strategy is slightly different. It's a out and out speed based exam, 150 minutes, 200 questions. The good thing is this time it is happening in April. So you have the entire December, Jan, Feb, March, right? So you have 4 months ahead of you. And this year they're also going to have another attempt in May. So you have two attempts at CET this year, which is useful to students in a way, correct? But in some way it is not useful. Okay, so but let's say you have 4 months. Now in 4 months you have to, again, assuming you have now taken CAT, right? So you're done with quant, most of it. You're done with data interpretation. You've done a few things in LR. Now CET specific things you'll have to focus on. So focus on vocab, grammar, definitely LR caselets, right? Abstract reasoning, which is 25 questions that appears in CET. So those are the things that you'll have to focus on. Okay. I have a call from Soil GDP on 11th. Any tips? Uh, okay, so 11th, if you have your GDPI, I would just suggest you to read the newspapers and maybe do one mock interview with any of your mentors at the center. That should be enough. Okay, so we're going to, of course, have the launch of our GDPI program very soon. So you can have a look at that as well. I'm scoring around 80 percentile in mocks. I'm in third year and have the option of working or taking optional fourth year honors, which will be better for next attempt prep. Um, okay, so see, because your fourth year is optional, right? It's completely your call whether you want to do it or not. Okay, if you think it adds to your candidature in some sense, you can go for it. Otherwise, you can decide to sort of see. It depends on like the benefit that you're getting from the whole thing, right? So I would not really look at it from the lens of whether it will be easier for me to go for another MBA attempt or not. But I'm going to look at it from the lens of, is the course adding value to me? If I think it is, then I will wait for another year. Is 85 to 90 percentile good enough? Depends. I mean, you will always have opportunities in that range, right? So it's not that you're not going to have opportunities, but everybody's aspirations are different, right? So somebody who is already earning, let's say, 12 LPA, his or her set of aspiration is going to be different from somebody who, let's say, is not earning anything, correct? Versus, let's say, somebody who has, let's say, a 999 profile versus a 777 profile. So that is why you will always find options in any percentile range that you mention to somebody. I mean, if somebody says, okay, I'm going to get 60 percentile, can I get into some B school? The answer is going to be yes. You will always have opportunities. For Snap, so again, first attempt is happening on the 6th, so you have to be prepared for that. Take a mock as early as possible, maybe tomorrow EOD or maybe Tuesday morning. and then figure out that, okay, these are the topics that I don't know. So maybe you realize, okay, I don't know clocks, I don't know calendars, I don't know direction sense, I don't know something else. Just go back to your books. In your MyMS, you have a lot of practice material for ADMAT. Start going through that, the ADMAT masterclasses especially, and then you prepare for the individual topics that are there. 217 in MAT with sectionals above 64. Should I give a retake? Considering last year, you don't need to. You should get a call from NMIMS at that score. Though the score is on the slightly on the lower side. I mean, there are a lot of people who have done like 240, 250, 260, etc. So, but yeah, from a pure requirement perspective, last year's data, if you go with, this score is enough. I don't think you should go for a retake because see, apart from NMIMS, you have good options. I'm not saying no, but it's up to you. I mean, are you looking at other options? If yes, then maybe you can still go for a retake. But if you're only looking at NMIMS, I don't think you need to go for a retake because they don't take that score anyway. I have NMAT scheduled on 3rd. Please suggest strategy for 2 days. Okay. So now 2 days, you have only first and second, right? So take a mock tomorrow. Let it be the official NMAT mock. Uh, if you haven't done official NMAT mock, I think I would suggest that you do official NMAT mock on both days because you have one attempt and then a re-attempt of that, which is a different set of questions. So on both days, same time, I'll just do the NMAT official mock, which is available in your dashboard. And anything that you get wrong, just go back to your book and study that. In NMAT specifically from a quant perspective, you have to be good at arithmetic and permutation combination probability. So those two areas is what you can work more on. What score should I good for mocks for ZAT? So see with ZAT again, the marking scheme is the most difficult part. So you have to um, see we have given ZAT score versus percentile data as well. So which is there on the B school zone. That is what I'm going to share next with you. So in case anybody has not looked at the B school zone, please have a look at it. It's a free tool for everybody. Under score versus percentile, you will find ZAT data. There you will be able to see over the last couple of years how things have been and target those particular scores. Okay. And in cutoffs, you'll also find cutoffs of last year and the year before that in sense of percentile. So you can do your calculations. What's a good score for SNAP? So typically the 98 percentile is somewhere around 43, 44, 45. So anything above 43 will be like a pretty decent score for SNAP. What's the lowest SNAP percentile score at which one can get into SIBM, SCMHID? Yeah, around 43, 44. That should be the aim to have. Was able to do one set in DLR in slot 3. Could I be able to at least touch 90 percentile in DLR? With one set, maybe 85 percentile looks more likely. 90 percentile, I'm not too sure. Two sets would have taken you to about 95 or more. But with one set, slightly doubtful at this point of time. Okay. What's the, okay, this I've already answered. I'm in 5th sem, will complete my grad around June 26. I gave CAT 25, I give CAT 26. Will I have a drop year? No. So, considered soul, you have an option to gather some work experience. So the moment you graduate in June 26, you start working. And because now you're taken CAT 25, right? You know the amount of effort required to crack it next year if you're planning to go for a retake. My INMAT is on 7 December. How to go for it from now? Okay, so maybe 3 mocks of IMS and 2 official mocks. So total of 5 mocks is what I will minimum do before I face my NMAT. With NMAT, the key is to get adjusted to the format, right? Which is very different compared to other tests. Adaptive, only one question at a time, can't go back, can't move ahead, right? So there are a lot of limitations there. So the decision making becomes very, very quick and important. That's the format you need to get adapted to. So that's why 5 mocks from now on, if you can do for NMAT, nothing like it. What about quant sectional cutoff for slot 1? So we have made detailed videos for individual slots. They're there on the channel. You can check them out. But the way it appeared, easier than CAT 23, but more difficult than CAT 24. So that's where the cutoffs will sit. Previous year papers as good as mocks for ZAT. Previous year papers are the best. So if you can do ZAT past papers, great. Please do that. The same way it is, right? For CAT, you do past year questions. That's the best thing that you can do. But see, with past papers, there's also that thing, right? That because they tend to get discussed in some or the other way, you may have seen some questions. So always account for that. That just because you scored well on a past year paper does not mean that in the test also you'll do that. And that is where mocks are a little better because there is also that element of surprise. How much can we increase the score in NMAT in around 10 days? Uh, See, improvement can always happen, right? And how much improvement will happen, that nobody can predict. But what I would say is if you take the official mock, it's the best estimate of where you stand right now. And then what you do is you target specific areas. So let's say you realize, okay, I'm very bad at, say, critical reasoning. Then do, let's say, 50 to 100 questions of critical reasoning. It will automatically improve your score. So, but it's possible to improve your score in 10 days for NMAT. If my cat went bad, should I try for ZAT or no? You should definitely try for ZAT. See, with ZAT, the competition is going to be um, maybe you can say even half of what it will be for cat, because I think last year ZAT had about what 40% increase in number of takers. But the competition is still, I would say, like half compared to cat. So definitely you should take ZAT. Can we skip questions in NMAT? You will have to mark something and then only you move on. So there's no option of not attempting a particular question because then you can't see the next question. How to manage speed and accuracy in Snap, and also leaving 10 plus questions is not a good thing. So in Snap, there is no such thing as adaptive or there's negative marking for unattempted questions, etc. So you pace yourself in such a way that you're able to do as many questions as you can with like near 100% accuracy. So you don't take unnecessary chances, but at the same time, don't be super conservative with your attempts. The strategy to follow if you want, you can try it out, which is to do VA first so that you take care of like 15 questions in the first 6, 7, 8 minutes, because that's like the quickest thing that you can do. Some people would like to keep it for the end, but that is again up to you. So finish off verbal, then move to either quant or LR, do all the easy questions there, then move to the other section, do all the easy questions. So in about 30 minutes, you try and get very close to say 25, 30 attempts. If you can do that, then you have won like half of the battle. How to manage ZAT prep from now on? Take a mock as soon as you can without doing any specific ZAT prep. See where you stand and what mistakes you're making, and then start working on those topics. Okay, especially DM, because why I say you take a mock even without preparing is that you will know, okay, where you stand, and then you can do focus prep rather than trying to, let's say, prepare for 10 days and then I take a mock. So I lose out on opportunity to improve on specific areas. um, Steve Banner, again, I don't know, but if you have my mail ID, you can always write to me, so that's okay, or you can leave any comment on the YouTube video. I generally check comments and reply. Can 241 in NMAT give me some good chance in NMIMS without work X? Why not? In fact, when you look at the way NMIMS gave cutoffs last year or issued calls, the reason they lowered it because they wanted more people to be a part of the process, and then they had their own test that they conducted. So in a way, the importance of NMAT has reduced when you look at NMIMS. So even with, I mean, 241 is a solid score. So I think if you definitely have a very good chance of converting as well. But see, the problem is that because they now have that second test, you have to do well on that, and of course the interview. How to manage ZAT and Snap together, or should I prioritize ZAT now? Snap will happen before ZAT, so you have to prioritize both. You can't say, okay, I'll prioritize Snap over ZAT or ZAT over Snap. But see, Snap is very simple compared to ZAT for sure. And you can also finish mocks very quickly. So to take a ZAT mock, I have to sit for a very long period compared to, say, a Snap mock. So that's why the dynamics are very different. But I'll do both. And that's why you need to alternate. So let's say I'm taking 4 mocks of ZAT. In between that, I can take, let's say, 2, 3 mocks of Snap. I could only solve 4 questions correctly in QA slot 2. Will this clear sectionals? 4 might not suffice. Maybe 5 is what you would need, but we never know, right? It's too early to say. What is the cutoff to get XLR Jamshedpur? It ranges, can range from anything like a 92, 93, 95, etc. Depending on whether you're engineer, non-engineer, male, female, right? So again, that data is there in on the B school zone. So that's why I've given the link. You can visit this and go to the cutoff page and search for XLRI. You'll find all the data. I filled form for ZAT. Do I have to apply for XLRI separately? So the ZAT and XLRI form is an integrated process. When you fill the ZAT form, they ask you which all programs of XLRI you want to apply for, and you have to pay per program. So if you have completed that process, you don't have to apply separately. My NMAT score was only 187. Should I try to increase it to 230 so that I can get into STA Bocconi and KJ somewhere? So with STA Bocconi, yes, you can definitely try in 230, you said. Okay, 187, so you want to take it to 230. Yes, you should try because SDA Bocconi takes your best attempt. So you can try out taking another attempt of NMAT. You can also try out their own test that they have, the SDA Bocconi test, if you want to get in. For KJ, they also accept the ZAT score. So you should also take ZAT. And ZAT registrations are still on. So you have some time before you can register. Is giving mock and mock analysis enough for both ZAT and SNAP? Yes, because most of the prep is done. So now when you take mocks, you realize the areas of improvement and then you target only that. You don't start from scratch. See, right now, all of you who are attending this, right? You or people who have taken CAT, your slate is not clean, right? So you have done enough. You've done a lot of stuff. Maybe not 100%. Some of you may have, let's say, skipped particular areas. But when you take a mock, you see, okay, there are easy questions, right, that I'm missing. So just go back, do those things. And the good thing is now you will not have to invest a lot of energy into doing difficult stuff. Now, whatever exams are remaining, if you do easy and moderate level questions, except maybe ZAT and PGDBA, apart from that, and even MyCAT Quant for that matter, which has been insanely difficult for whatever reasons, if you ignore some of these things, for rest of them, it's just going to be doing the easy and moderate questions. Okay, so somebody has asked cutoff for XLRI Jamshedpur BM for non-engineer male. Again, I don't remember it, right? I mean, why should I even remember? Because that's the reason precisely why we created B School Zone, so that everybody, whether you are a mentor or a student, IMS student, non-IMS student, whoever, you have access to that information easily. So just go there. It will take you not even a minute to identify or find that data point. Should I accept Masters Union offer? I will wait, right? So I would recommend waiting and wait for other converts, other opportunities, and then you take a call. What's the difficulty level of NMAT as compared to CAT? Definitely much easier overall composition wise, but NMAT is a different test. So you will always find people who have done better on the CAT, worse on the NMAT, and the other way around. So people who have done extremely well on NMAT but terribly on CAT. Are 14 mocks okay for that? More than enough. 10, anything between like 8 to 10 mocks is good enough for that. If you have done your CAT prep very well. When will ZAT mocks be uploaded in IMS portal? There are 8 mocks that we are planning this year. Last year we had 5 mocks. This year we are doing 8. We have already released 4 and the remaining 4 will be released soon. For ZAT from scratch, can you suggest something? Then prepare for CAT also some portion. But Krishna, you take a mock, right? So take a ZAT mock or a pass ZAT paper and then work on your improvement areas. Will we have classes for innovation entrepreneurship? So we don't do classes as such or sessions because so we will do a series on YouTube for innovation and entrepreneurship. But for IMS students, we already have tests that are there on innovation entrepreneurship. Plus, there's reading material that is given to you. So you can go through that because see, it's a theory subject, right? In the sense that you have to read and prepare for it. Classes or sessions generally don't help for INE because it's a lot of theory to cover. Okay. All right. How much percentile needed for XLRI? Okay. Again, find it on the B school zone. What different prep should I do in ZAT compared to CAT? The only additional thing is decision making. Rest of it is more or less the same. Will we get extra Snap mocks or PYQs at in MyMS? Okay, so with Snap or NMAT, you don't have past year papers available, right? Wherever it is available. So, for example, ZAT, CMAT, where they release the past papers, even CET in the last 2 years, they have started releasing the paper. That is where we upload in MyMS. But for Snap and NMAT, you won't have the, or MyCAT, you won't have past papers because they don't release it. Snap or ZAT, which should I choose or both? Firstly, Snap registration is already over. So if you have registered, then obviously you will take it. If you haven't, that opportunity is gone. That registration is still open, so you can register for the test. How to prepare for DM along with PYQs. So DM prep isn't going to take too much time because ultimately all of it is just pure logical thinking and decision making based on the information that is provided to you. So you do DM test, you do DM workshops, and you do pass that papers. That's more than enough. Doing MBA from any IIT. Okay, so again on this particular page, you have something called MBA from IIT's Ready Reckoner. Please go through it. It will give you information about MBA at IITs. Great options. You should definitely apply, but you need to wait for the CAT final this thing because you still have time before you apply to IITs. Okay. Akhil, I don't know which variant you are a part of, so I can't answer that question whether Zatmox are included or not. If you can raise a ticket, the support team will help you out. Which colleges do not have sectional cutoff? So if you look at if you exclude the top tier IIMs, right, majority of the institutions do not have sectional requirements. So top tier IIMs and some of the other top tier private B schools will have a sectional cutoff required. Otherwise, most of them don't need it. Okay. Okay. INE, is it for ZAT? No, ZAT does not have innovation entrepreneurship. That was for CMAT. Okay. All right. So I think we can wrap up the session here. It's been almost 50 minutes, and we will, of course, have more sessions as we progress. So you'll have enough opportunity to reach out. But if there is any question, you can always leave it as a comment on this particular video, and I'll try and get back as soon as I can. We are also planning to release a what after cat video summarizing all of these things that we discussed today. So in case you could not attend the whole thing, you can maybe watch that video tomorrow. Okay. So uh, okay, some questions should be guess and mark answers in that instead of skipping question because ultimately even if I leave, we gonna net minus 0.25. No, there is a minus 0.10, right? So between getting something negative unattempted, you have to play your game correctly. So don't just mark stuff because for unattempted questions, there's a penalty, but that doesn't mean that you just mark everything. Okay. All right. So we'll kind of end the session here, but let me know if you have further questions. Feel free to reach out and I'll be very happy to help. Okay. Bye, everyone. Take care. And again, just to come back to where we started, um, whatever has happened, and there's nothing that you can do to change it. But you take lessons from that experience and then apply it for what lies ahead, right? Whether it is the AdMats and other interviews and B school applications and so on. Okay. So that's it. All the best to all of you. I'll see you very soon. Okay. Bye.